morning, my girl. Yeah, this morning it's instant. Don't judge. Too tired. I don't feel like making my 48-ounce Stanley cup this morning. Stanley French press this morning. Instant coffee it is. It'll work. This morning I was looking for something. I needed something to find some additional perspective. Last night, for whatever reason, it was a really rough night. It's hot. It's like 100 degrees here in South Texas too. Last night was a really rough night. I don't know why. I don't know what caused it, but there was this overwhelming sense of anxiety, to the point that it was a little bit crippling, actually, in that I couldn't, for a hot second, I couldn't do what I was trying to do. I couldn't, like, my brain wouldn't focus. And after last night and this morning, I woke up, made some really strong coffee. Yeah, it was instant, but just wasn't in the mood to kind of go through the French press process this morning, like I usually do. But I was looking for something. I needed a little bit of motivation. And I found it in a podcast. And I want to share just real briefly some of the scope of that podcast. There was a story, and the quote was something along the lines of, your perspective can become your passport or your prison. And within the podcast, there was a story of a man and his wife, and I want to share that because it stuck with me for a second. It was a husband and wife, and they were out shopping one day, and the husband saw these four-wheelers that he thought, gosh, the kids would just love these, right? And of course, you know, the wife kind of thinking, yeah, that might be cool, but gosh, they look really dangerous, right? Anyway, the husband and the father of the kids talks his wife into, hey, yeah, it's all right, let's get these. And they were going to give them to the kids for Christmas. And Christmas rolls around, Christmas Day rolls around, and the kids are stoked, right? They look outside and they're like, Dad, that's awesome. Like, can we go ride? So Dad takes one of the kiddos out, takes his son out, and is teaching him some basics about this four-wheeler, right? And the first part is some terminology, you know, light and heavy. So, all right, son, when I say light, you need to go a little slower. We need to learn when we need to slow down a little bit. When I say heavy, you can go a little heavier. We have a little bit more space. There's a little bit more room. It's be careful, but it's okay to let loose a little bit more because we have the space for it. Some other terminology I think he said he used was like thin and wide. So taking the turns and teaching them when they need to take turns, either, tight or wide. And, take a tight turn, it's okay in this environment, or here's when you need to take these wide turns. Anyway, so doing all this teaching. And somehow Dad ends up falling off the back. He's on that little bar that's on the back and ends up falling off the back. And the son inadvertently tips over the four-wheeler. And Dad's looking back, sees Mom starts to, run out after him, all kinds of worried, rightfully so, right? And Dad then gets up, he sees that his arm is bleeding a little bit, he sees his son has a little bit of a scratch on his head, and of course his wife is coming, and he's nervous. He's like, I'm nervous, or I'm gonna get yelled at, right? And so he's like, son, dust yourself off, get back on. And kid's like, Dad, wait, Mommy's coming. The kid's like 7, Son's like, no, like, she's gonna be mad, let's go. Like, get right, get straight, and go heavy, like, now. So they go, and he continues teaching a little bit, and then, all right, come back, you know, park the four-wheeler. And, you know, his wife is seeing that, you know, they're both bleeding a little bit and is really worried. And why did you do that? This is so unsafe. I didn't like this idea. Like, I don't want the kids to do this. And the dad and the father, you know, husband and father was like, you know what? It wasn't necessarily about how dangerous these things might be. That's part of it. And, you know, but in that moment, in that exact moment, two things occurred to me. One, I needed to not let you yell at me right away because I knew I was in for it. It's a little dangerous. We'll continue to work at it. But two, in that moment, our son needed to learn that when you fall down, you dust yourself off immediately and you get back up. Adversity, challenge, opposition, whatever the case, it's going to be present in life. You get up. You figure out, do I need to go light or heavy? But sometimes even when there's fear, you need to go a little heavier. You need to go a little harder because you got to get through that or get past that fear. And he needed to get past that. He needed to not be scared of this four-wheeler and realize that growing pains occur. He can do it. Let's continue to learn. We'll try to continue to be safe, but he can push past this. And that story reflected, I was reflecting on that, and it stayed with me a little bit this morning. I don't know if it was exactly what I needed to hear after being on the struggle bus with some overwhelming, it came on really quick, anxiety last night. It was overwhelming and sharp, and, you know, it was crippling. Like, it crippled me for a hot second, and that I couldn't think, I couldn't focus, I couldn't do. So I don't know if that particular story or that particular quote was exactly what I needed to hear today, but it helped. I would be lying if I said that my mind is right, my head is right. I think I'm going to get through the day. I'm going to focus on getting through the day. I'm going to come home and I'm going to sit down and I'm going to journal on this quote that your perspective can become your passport or your prison. And I want to let that marinate throughout the course of the day, and then I want to sit down and try to identify, you know, the why behind some of those feelings last night. I think I have a pretty good idea. It's okay to give them voice. It's okay to identify them. It's okay to acknowledge them. But then part of the journaling process tonight, after doing that, I want to try to figure out how can I regroup, how can I reorganize, how can I reset to kind of continue to push past. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to get through my day, but then hopefully you'll join me here in the next segment too for a little bit of journaling on that topic. Hey everybody, thanks for sticking around for the video. I really appreciate you sticking around to the end. You know, I don't really know if that quote or the story today helped you. I sincerely hope that it did. The idea that your perspective can become your passport or be your prison, it resonated pretty hard with me today, and I don't know that I have 100% figured anything out just from a little bit of journaling. I kept going after I turned the camera off for a little bit, and I'm not sure that I completely dug myself out of that funk, out of that hole, but I think that the story from today helped, no matter what was kind of really eating at me. Get up, dust yourself off, and get back after it. And that is the, I don't know, the story I'll continue to tell myself when I kind of get into these funks. I'll try to remember to link that particular podcast in the description for you to check out. It was a good story. I laughed a little bit. I needed the laugh too, so that part definitely helped for sure. The quote itself, the story, it helped. It just wasn't, I don't know if it was exactly what I was needing today after overwhelming anxiety last night, to the point that it was just also some sadness, and it for no seemingly good reason, right? Just something that just kind of hits you and gets in your way a little bit. So don't want to push it out of the way and not necessarily recognize it, but acknowledge it, work through it, and remember that I can get up and dust myself off and figure it out tomorrow, because the sun will rise tomorrow. It sounded really cheesy, but I mean it. It's one of those things. It's just maybe a constant we sometimes take for granted, but it will get better. And tomorrow doesn't have to be what today was. At any rate, thank you for sticking around. Remember to live life outside of the work that you do.